Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the channel. My name is Rich Charpentier. I'm the channel host. And as always, thanks for stopping by and hanging out for a few. We really do appreciate all the folks taking a little bit of their time each day to check out our latest videos. So today, I wanted to talk to you about the new Mavic 3's controller versus the Mavic 2 Pro and the original Mavic Pro's controller. Because some things have come up for me as I've been looking more and more into the Mavic 3. And yes, I am very interested in getting one of these down the road, but just not today until a couple of things are worked out, like the new firmware updates that everyone's been mentioning and some other things that people have been running into. But something that jumped out at me being an Arizona drone operator was the new controller. So I wanted to talk to you about that. But before we talk about that, we need to go back in time a little bit to this location here on screen called White Pocket. Now, this location is in the Vermilion Cliffs National Monument. It's a favorite place for me to go and do photography. It's gorgeous rock formations. Some of the areas you're not allowed to fly in, national parks and national monuments, but other areas you can. This particular area, we have not flown with the drones. These are still photos that are ground-based, but I wanted to introduce you to the area and say, I live in Arizona. What's Arizona well known for? Well, the spring, summer, and fall, a lot of heat. During the winter, we actually do get cool-offs, and where we're located in the mountains, it definitely cools off, and we even see snow sometimes. But if you're going to some of the amazing places here in Arizona and you're bringing your drone along, I think that the controller might be of concern to you for the Mavic 3. Now let me arrow down on this one. So just another look at this location. Beautiful rock formations in the morning. At the time of year we were there, it was probably in the 40s, but we got into the 70s pretty quickly that afternoon. And so it does heat up. This area gets hot. As you can see in this image, we've got sand dunes. We really have sand dunes. I've walked across many sand dunes, a lot of fun. Also very exhausting. But one of the big things to keep in mind here is that it gets incredibly hot out in this area. And this is another location called the Grand Staircase Escalante. Beautiful rock formations in here, multicolors. And close to this location, I actually had an incident with my drone the other year. And so we're going to get into that. But the final image, hey, Teddy Bear Choya, don't let these things puncture your boots. It hurts. All right. So while we were out on location several years ago up in the Lake Powell area, some of that area, it's not legal to fly your drone, so you need to check into where you can and where you can't. But we visited a location over near the Perea movie set, the old Perea movie set. And it was mid-spring, and it was heating up during the day. It was 90 degrees Fahrenheit at a location close to this location. So we'll use this as our backdrop. And I was just setting the drone up to get some flights to do some video and with the Mavic 2 Pro and humming right along, and suddenly my iPhone screen went out. So here, right here, is my controller for the Mavic 2 Pro, and I've got my iPhone down here on the bottom. Now, when you first connect your drone to your controller, you actually have a readout screen right in here that gives you a lot of great information. I'm going to show you a photo of that momentarily. So we've got a lot of data on this screen telling us a lot of important information. We also have that same data coming across on the DJI Go 4 app. But so my phone went out. It overheated and the phone turned itself off. The drone was several hundred feet away from me. Fortunately, I had it in my visual line of sight while I was doing my flight. So no big deal. It freaked me out a little bit that, hey, the screen on my smartphone has gone completely out, and it was due to heat. So later that day, I found a more shaded area to fly from so that we wouldn't have the iPhone basically disconnecting from the controller. Fortunately, I still had all of my controller information on that panel. And so that panel told me my elevation, told me my speed, gave me all that great information. And so one of the things that I have noticed with the new DJI Mavic 3 is that the base controller that comes with it doesn't have any readout information or anything. So let's take a look here. So I was actually, cruising around the web this morning because I couldn't find many great photos of the controller that's coming with the Mavic 3. Most people are talking about the new smart controller for the Mavic 3. So they have a new smart controller. But as you can see over here, the little DJI controller here, it doesn't have that readout that I've got. So we're just going to switch screens here. And let's see, Mavic 3 controller, smart controller. There we go. So let's go ahead and pull this one out here now. There we go. So this morning I just connected my drone quickly, connected to the controller here. And on the controller you can see, so I was doing this indoors, so it was in Opti mode. The information it gives me here, 0 miles per hour, which mode I'm in. So if I was outside, it'd be GPS mode. The battery percentage that remains on my drone. My connection right now from the controller to the drone. Also the controller's battery power as well. We've got some information about our exposure, so 0 EV at the moment. And then we would have our elevation. We've got clearance here. We've also got our elevation and our distance from the controller. So this is a lot of great and important information for us when we're out in the field. Now we see that I've got my iPhone right below it here. And so I could connect with the DJI Go 4 app or Litchi or Map Pilot Pro, whatever it is that I'm using. And then I'm going to have information on that app on the phone. But if at any point in time my phone overheats, which it does here during the summer on a regular basis, so that phone could end up turning itself off and going into a cool down mode. And with that in mind, we have no information on this new controller for the Mavic 3 Pro at all. No information. So we can connect a smartphone to this, and they've got a cool little cradle for it, which is, nice and convenient to hold things. But this is missing some data here. Now, some people like the larger controller, and I have seen from some other folks that they did have concerns that they did not have that extra little readout screen. But if at any point in time your phone overheats, iPhone, Android, whatever you got, you're out in the field, you're hanging out in Arizona where it's hot, and that phone goes up, we don't have any information on this. So, more than ever, visual line of sight is hugely important. And just doing FPV, navigating by the screen alone, could cost you in the long run. You could end up losing a drone if you've flown it out too far. Fortunately, they do have the return to home button, so does the older one. But I have to say, I really like the original controller here. I like this setup. I don't like the holder for my smartphone down here, and I do have another holder for it instead. But this readout screen means a lot to me and has been useful in the field more than one occasion here. So I think this is kind of a step back, to be honest, from the Mavic 2 controller, and I know that several other drones from DJI are now using this new controller. They also do offer a new smart controller, okay? Now the smart controller, I never bothered purchasing. So the smart controller is like this right here, the DJI RC Pro remote controller. So they have a built-in screen on it. It's running on some kind of Android OS. So those of us who are iOS people who have some favorite apps for flying things, this isn't going to be something for you. But DJI has come out with a new version of the smart controller. So while I was researching and setting this up to talk to you about one of my concerns with the Mavic 3's controller, I stumbled across several articles on why your old DJI smart controller won't work with the Mavic 3. So the older version that's been out for, 2 years now, the older version of the smart controller that has the built-in screen is not going to connect to your Mavic 3 Pro today. That doesn't mean that it's not going to happen and that down the road they won't have an update. But where it stands today, if you were planning on using your smart controller for the Mavic 3, you're out of luck. You have to get the new one. So I actually had read through on Drone DJ the article on this. So DJI said no to being able to currently use that particular smart controller. Now, I also found another video, which was a really good video, so pay this guy a visit, Ian in London. So he did one on the DJI smart controller and the Mavic 3. It's an incompatible match for now. Down the road, they might be able to remedy this issue. So my biggest concern and what I wanted to talk to you about today was just the differences between these controllers. And I actually do think that DJI has taken a step backward by not giving us that readout screen. There we go. Because this contains a lot of important and useful information. And sometimes some of the information on here is not available in whatever flight app you're using. So this is a very helpful quick look. It also lets me know and it keeps me honest about where I'm at for my battery usage, both on the drone and for my controller as well. So I really do love this particular controller, and the new controller that's coming out with the latest drones is a disappointment to me because it's just the controller, no additional information, and it's a little bit larger. It's a little bit awkward to hold on to be honest. So let's go ahead and close this preview out, and let's just double check. Oh yeah, so I had actually flagged the not compatibles here to share with you. And let's see the Mavic 3 controller. So one more listing. I was just trying to find some good photos of this. But so once again, no informational readout whatsoever. And not much, there's not much to this particular controller. So like I said, I think it's taking a step backward. One other thing to note before we head off for the morning. DJI keeps changing things a little bit on us. So we have the DJI Go app, which was for some of the original drones and for some of the mobile cameras and gimbals. Then we had the DJI Go 4 app, which I am currently using for both my Mavic Pro and my Mavic 2 Pros. And now we've got the DJI Fly app, and we've got this successive iteration of controllers. So we have the original smart controller, now we have the new smart controller for the Mavic 3, we have the Mavic 1 and 2 controllers, and now we've got this new controller for the Mavic 3 again. And it does worry me a little bit that DJI starts building a new platform, starts a new development pathway, and then moves to a new product and does the same thing again. Now we're going to use this app, we're going to use this software. And so it can become a little overwhelming, especially if you've been a longer term DJI user. You might have 2 or 3 different controllers because they're taking different paths. So I don't know about their engineering and software development groups, if they're talking to the previous folks who designed the previous controllers, how they're getting that kind of input. But we seem to be piling up lots of different controllers and lots of different apps depending on which DJI drone that we're using. And that doesn't actually feel so great to me. I'd like to see a consistent, uniform ecosystem, and I don't think that that's going to be coming for us when it comes to DJI. All right, everybody, I just wanted to share that one with you. If you're considering the Mavic 3 Pro, just keep in mind that the base controller that comes with it is kind of a very bare bones controller in comparison to the controller for the Mavics 1 and 2 if you've gotten really used to those. Also keep in mind to make sure that your firmware is up to date and that the particular apps that you're using for your flights are supported for the Mavic 3, because right now the vast majority of the flight apps that I use are not supported for the Mavic 3 yet. But probably in the next couple months, we'll see that come to pass. All right, everyone, I hope this was informative and helpful for you, and I hope it gives you a little more insight into drawbacks with the Mavic 3 before you go spend that big bucket of money, because that's a lot of money. And once again, I would suggest popping over to Ian in London's channel and giving a watch, because I wasn't even anticipating talking about the smart controller today, but after watching his video, I decided we should mention it here as well, because it's still controller related, and that was the big point of today's talk. All right, everyone, have an awesome rest of your week, We'll see you again on channel real soon. By the way, if you like this, please be sure to like and subscribe down below, and you can find out more about us in the show details down below.